DATV, and the Greater Dayton Area League of Women Voters present Meet the Candidates, your chance to learn about the candidates running for office in the November election.
Hello, I'm Sandy Williams with the League of Women Voters from the Greater Dayton area. I'm here today with candidates for the office of Riverside Mayor. There are 4 candidates running for one open seat in this position. Those candidates are Mike Denning, Sarah Lomach, Shirley Reynolds, and Pete Williams. Unfortunately, Shirley Reynolds, a candidate for this position, regrets she could not be here because of a prior commitment. We will start our interviews having candidates tell us about themselves and why they chose to serve in this position as Riverside Mayor. Mike, could we please start with you?
Sure. My name is Mike Denning. I've lived in Riverside for close to 40 years. I have done community service all of my life. I was in the Riverside JCs. I helped with the conditions of merger. I was on the Greater Mad River Township Association, which was the organization that fought against Dayton to stop annexation, and that became the organization that went for the conditions of merger. As I moved on with my community service, I keep working with the JCs, and I believe that being mayor or being on council is an additional community service, and being mayor would be the next step in making my community a better place to live, work, and play.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, and Sarah, could we go with you?
Good morning,
Yeah.
and I'm Sarah Lomach, and I would like to say hello to all the constituents that we have in the city of Riverside. I would like to thank the League for giving us this opportunity to reach out to the voters, because communication is always key. And I would like to ask the community to continue to support me as they have in the past, because I feel like I have spent my entire life being of service, not just here, but as a military spouse. I served on the Mad River School Board for 16 years while I had children attending. And as they graduated, I moved on and ran for council and have been on council. I'm a regional leader, I feel like, because I have been involved in the region through the Miami Valley Regional Planning Commission, which is the agency that oversees transportation in a 5-county area. I've also been involved with the Military Affairs Board at Wright-Patterson, because they're key to our city. I am also involved at the Chamber, obviously my church, and support many other activities. I've always supported the JCs. I've supported all of the community groups in their efforts to make Riverside a better place to live. And I do thank you for this opportunity for our voters to see who's going to be their next strong leader, and I would like it to be me.
Okay, thank you so much. Pete, could we go on with you? Could you tell us a bit about yourself and how it is you chose to run for this position?
Absolutely. Thank you very much, and thank you for this opportunity. And I'd also like to say thank you to Mr. Denning and Ms. Lomach for having this conversation with us. It's an important conversation to have, and it's great that we can sit down and talk about these things. So my name is Pete Williams. My wife Rebecca and I are raising our 3 sons in Riverside proudly. They attend school at St. Helens Elementary, where my wife is on the PTO. We attend church at St. Helens Catholic Church, where I serve as chair of the Stewardship Committee. Professionally, I have 15 years experience in economic development and community planning. I currently serve on the executive board of directors for Dayton Defense, one of the largest aerospace industry trade organizations in the country, supporting jobs at Wright-Pat and well beyond. I also serve on the executive board of at the Dayton VA with the American Heritage Veterans Center, supporting our great veterans and the legacy that they leave us. I also have a professional career that includes service and economic development with Jobs Ohio West. I've served on advisory boards at Sinclair. I've served at advisory boards with Clark State Community College, the Dayton Regional Manufacturers Association. And I really feel like the background that I have in job growth, economic promotion, and workforce development is key to Riverside's vitality as we enter our 25th year as a city this January. And I believe fiercely in the future of Riverside, and that's why I'm running for mayor. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much. Okay, we'll go to our first question here. And Sarah, we'd like to start with you.
Thank you.
Okay, many of our local cities in Montgomery and Greene counties were hit with tornadoes over the Memorial Day weekend. Riverside was among the areas that were affected by these storms. Do you feel your community had an effective disaster plan and to meet the needs of your community? And what lessons can be learned and what might you do differently?
Thank you for that question, because I think that's vitally important for our future. We had what I feel was a appropriate response to our residents. At the time, I believe that our disaster plan needs to probably take a second look but our employees did a wonderful job, as did a lot of our citizens, including our Mad River school teachers who came out into the area that was most affected in Riverside, and they responded, as did the schools and all of our community organizations that always have a big heart. And it was pretty devastating to observe as I drove through the area the next morning, and it came very near to my property. However, I was not affected, but the trees and the devastation in the city. But we did have wonderful regional support, which I believe regional support is key for us to all survive. We had wonderful volunteered response from our neighboring communities and of course the state of Ohio. Mm-hmm. So I do believe we need to look at our disaster response, because we've been very fortunate as a township and as a city. We've had very, very few true disasters. Mm-hmm. Thank you for that question.
Thank you. And Pete, I'm going to restate that question for you. Many of our local cities in Montgomery and Greene counties were hit with tornadoes over the Memorial Day weekend. Riverside was among the areas that were affected by these storms. Do you feel your community had an effective disaster plan to meet the needs of your community? And also, what lessons might be learned and what would you do differently?
I would echo Sarah's sentiments that our employees for the city of Riverside did a wonderful job in response to the aftermath of the disaster. It was wonderful to see the service workers out working 12-hour shifts, working 6-7 days in a row. I know Mr. Denning was out himself with a chainsaw, cutting down trees, removing them from roads. So the community response was wonderful. I felt very proud to be a part of a community organization at St. Helens Parish that not only led the way on collection points for families that were affected, because the area where Sarah and I both live was hit pretty hard by the tornadoes, that part of Riverside. So it was a point of pride for me to be involved with an organization that was taking the lead on that, and again working in conjunction with the city, working in conjunction with our local organizations, whether that be the Chamber of Commerce, a neighboring Chamber of Commerce in Beaver Creek, where I have an affiliation, was the host for a FEMA disaster site. So I feel like the role of the city in an event like this is a resource connector and a service provider. So the city should be playing point guard on connecting whether it's the folks from FEMA, the folks from the state of Ohio, with people on the disaster relief side to make sure that volunteers are coordinated, to make sure that employees are coordinated. And I would also echo Sarah's sentiments that I think it's probably time for a second look on a disaster relief plan, because we have been very fortunate in our section of the city, our section of the county, that these types of events have been very few and far between. But I think it was so inspiring to see the result of this event was the community coming together and being so resourceful. And it was an enormous point of pride for me, being a member of St. Helens Parish. Our parish festival was 2 weeks after the tornadoes. And we donated tens of thousands of dollars to tornado relief after our festival and promoted the fact that being a part of our celebration was going to help families in need. So the city has a role, nonprofits have a role, the state has a role. The city's job is to make sure that those things are all coordinated when these disasters hit.
Okay, all right, thank you so much. Now, Mike, I'm going to restate that question for you. Many of our local cities in Montgomery and Greene counties were hit with tornadoes over the Memorial Day weekend. Riverside was among those areas affected by the storms. Do you feel your community had an effective disaster plan to meet the needs for your community? And what lessons can be learned from that? And what would you do differently?
The answer is not really. They didn't have a real effective plan, and the plan needs to be reevaluated. There were a lot of folks that wanted to volunteer that we couldn't. They weren't coordinated until a week or two later. I believe that if we, as a community, would reach out to our organizations and have contacts that they would know that the city can talk to this group and that group and that group, and these are the points of contact, then we could have done an even better job of coordinating and had it cleaned up even faster than we did. There was a group of JCs that called me and said, hey, what can we do? And I made a phone call and said, okay, where do you need us? And I had very little help finding out where that is. So we went out on our own, and as Mr. Williams said, we cut down trees and cut up what we needed. But what I really, really liked, what I saw was the community was helping neighbor. Our largest and best resource was our residents helping each other. A lot of the damage was in the backyards, and so neighbors were helping each other pull it out and put it up front. So the thing we need to do is be better coordinated with our direction that we need relief.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. For our second question here, we're going to start with Pete. Okay. In 2017, Ohio had the second highest rate of drug overdose deaths involving opioids in the United States. As mayor, how would you address the opioid issues in your community?
Wow, that is such a that is such a hard subject to tackle at times, and it hits close to home with many of us. And it can't just be a law enforcement issue. It can't just be a healthcare issue. It has to be a holistic issue. And I feel like the role that the city can play in a subject as encompassing as opioid abuse and what it leads to is by having a strategy and resource partners in place where at the early signs of trouble for teenagers, at recovery points for adults, and at all points in between, that a city can be that resource provider where citizens, whether it's teenagers in high school, whether it's people trying to join the workforce, or whether it's people coming in and out of our military, that there's resources in place that a city can accurately and astutely point people in the direction of. And that doesn't just mean government agencies. That means nonprofits, that means our churches, that means our hospital systems, Premier and Kettering. There's a lot of points in between, and I think that only comes with coordination, and that comes with tackling hard conversations. And I think that having those conversations earlier and earlier with our young people is what helps. And I know that Governor DeWine has made this a real centerpiece of the things that he's trying to make an emphasis on for the state level. So I feel like better coordination with the state, again, with those resource partners in between, is the only way that we're going to tackle a situation as hard to take on as the opioid crisis. I know that former sheriff, now state rep Phil Plummer, has also made that something that he wants to make sure that resource partners are in place to take care of. And again, I think it's going to be an all hands on deck, all of the above answer. But the city has to coordinate resource partners properly to get that done.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Mike, I'm going to restate that for you.
Okay.
In 2017, Ohio had the second highest rate of drug overdose deaths involving opioids in the United States. As mayor, how would you address the opioid issues in your community?
One of the things that we already as a city have in place is our is it paramedicine, Sarah? Is that what it's called? Where we have our police and fire department go out when they've made calls to an opioid situation. They go out the day after or a couple days later and talk to that family about what they can do. Here are your resources. You can go to rehab. We will take you. And that's what we need to be able to do, is help people. Sometimes they just don't know that there's help. They don't know that there's people out there that want to help them. And we do. We want to help. But you got to be willing to accept that help. So we work with the state. We work with our local groups and make it happen so that we can be better prepared for this terrible epidemic.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes. Thank you so much. Sarah, I'm going to say that again for you.
Sure.
In 2017, Ohio had the second highest Ohio had the second highest rate of drug overdose deaths involving opioids in the United States. As mayor, how would you address the opioid issues in your community?
Well, thank you for that question, because it certainly is a vital issue across the country. However, I feel very confident that the city of Riverside has made inroads. We have already in place, Paula and the police department, fire department, and with the support of the police department, already are engaging the community in opportunities to improve their lives, and through whatever family members may be involved. And we have some situations of return events, and when that happens, we are reaching out to them, and we have just recently received a grant that will bring on 3 additional firemen, full-time firemen, and we're looking forward to that giving them more help, because with our small departments, we often have a mutual response to events where police and fire and paramedics all are on the scene. And we offer lots of opportunities, and fortunately we can report that the numbers are down in 2019 significantly from previous years. And I do follow that closely, and as others have mentioned, you know, we don't know when we personally are going to be affected by that kind of situation in our own family and friends. And so I do have that is very, very high priority in making sure that our citizens get everything they have, that they should have, that is theirs and appropriately should be. We have wonderful response. We obviously would like to have far better response, and that would come with more personnel, which is an issue. We have small departments, and our response teams are good, response times are good, but of course they can always be better.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. So, okay, our third question, we're going to start with Mike. Unfortunately, the city of Dayton experienced mass shootings in early August of this year. As mayor of your community, how can you or will you prepare for an active shooter incident at community events such as parades and festivals and concerts?
That's a tough one. You can't always be prepared. You can be prepared, plan for the worst and hope for the best. Keeping lots of eyes open, and training people to, if they see something, say something. I know that the school system already, if if they hear something or they see something on social media, they're immediately on top of it, and the police are notified, and so on. So we need to be able to do the same things for parades and large events. The real answer is we need to work on folks' mental health so that we don't have these situations. If we get our mental health system up and working the way it's supposed to, hopefully those situations will go away.
Okay, thank you very much. Sarah, unfortunately, the city of Dayton experienced a mass shooting in early August of this year. As mayor of your community, how can you or will you prepare for an active shooter at community events such as parades, festivals, and concerts?
That's a fully loaded question to address with a very short explanation with the time we have allotted. I just had an incident in my neighborhood involving lockdown. Lasted 15 hours. It was not a large event, as you have stated in the question. However, I was able to upfront and personally witness in my front yard the response that we as a city have and as a county with the SWAT team. I found it to be truly amazing. And fortunately, it had an unfortunate outcome for the gentleman involved in the activity. But it was in concert with all of the agencies that watch that stuff. And I think it's key in our schools. But I think the bottom line is at home, and we have to communicate to our residents that if they're concerned about a member of their family or a neighbor or friend, please get in touch with somebody and look for some help. Because there's lots of help available. It's just the mindset of whether they're willing to admit and ask for help. And in this situation, this individual was watched for a while and they were aware of some of the things that were going on. So it had for the neighborhood outcome that was not too bad. It was an inconvenience for them. But I did see our police force as well as many others from the region, and that's what we have to live by, a regional involvement.
Okay.
None of us have enough.
Yes, thank you very much. Pete, I'm going to restate that for you. Unfortunately, the city of Dayton experienced a mass shooting in August of this year. As mayor of your community, how can you or will you prepare for an active shooter at a community event such as a parade, a festival, or a concert?
Well, I think that Riverside is probably better prepared than many might feel. Being involved with the largest community event that Riverside holds every year in June, our parish festival at St. Helens attracts around 20,000 visitors in a 3-day period. And a few years ago, there was social media activity around somebody possibly threatening violence at that event. And from the moment that became apparent forward, our police, in conjunction with Montgomery County Sheriffs and in conjunction with a lot of other agencies, not only increased the security presence at that event, but they also made sure that the person in question could come nowhere near the event. And as just a citizen of the city, it gave me a lot of peace of mind. And as one of the people who helps put on that festival, it gave me a large level of confidence in our city. Having school children that attend school in Riverside, I know that Officer Toscani is visiting St. Helens twice a week, and that Principal Busher at St. Helens, along with the principals at all of our public and private schools, have our police officers not only on speed dial, but a first name basis. So there's really two sides of the equation. There's the self-preparedness role that I feel like Riverside does a really great job of, and I've seen it in action. And then the other side of it, which Sarah mentioned, in our neighborhood earlier this week, we had an incident where someone who probably struggled with mental health issues and also had access to a large number of weapons, was under surveillance or was being tracked by federal agencies, and in conjunction with our local law enforcement, a situation that could have maybe turned out terrible down the road, was an inconvenience to our neighborhood for a 15-hour standoff, but making sure that mental health issue is front of mind. Thank heavens that nothing came of that other than the inconvenience that we had in our neighborhood earlier this week. So there's two parts of it, but I also feel I feel like the preparedness part, Riverside has done such a great job, and I've seen it firsthand. And the mental health part is something that we as a country are going to have to continue to work vigilantly moving forward.
Thank you. Thank you very much. In closing, we'd like to provide each candidate with time for a closing statement, and we're allowing 1 minute for that. We've had 2 minutes for all the others. So, Sarah, could we start with you, please?
Sure. Again, I want to thank you for this opportunity, because we do struggle with the opportunity of communicating. And I just would like everyone to remember that they need to vote on November the 5th. I feel I'm the strongest candidate in the field, and I am looking forward to the support of my many friends and supporters out in the community. If you have any questions, I'm open. My phone is available, and I'm at many, many public events, so please don't hesitate to introduce yourself if I don't know you. Our community is at a crossroads of deciding what direction we want to go. We're not a teenager anymore. We're a young adult, and we need to act like that. And I can't not say something about the street levy before we close. It is paramount that we get the street levy. The street in front of your house is your responsibility to maintain. And so you need to decide what you want your neighborhood to look like. And so we are asking you to please remember to vote November 5th. And I am awesomely looking forward to being your next mayor. And thank you again for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. And Pete, do you have some closing comments you'd like to share?
Yes. And thank you again for the opportunity. I'd say thank you to Mr. Denning and Ms. Lomach for taking part in this great conversation. Sarah's right. Riverside is at a crossroads. We turned 25 in January, and there is an opportunity for a new direction. I feel like Riverside is ready for a mayor with the network and the experience to make job growth and economic development priority number one. As your mayor, I'll prioritize development opportunities with our state and regional partners, something Riverside has not done a great job of in the past years. I feel like we can take the assets, the location, and the people of Riverside, the most important part, and make this a great place to do business, and more importantly, a great place to raise a family. I'm proudly running for mayor and raising my children here in Riverside, and I'd appreciate your vote on November 5th. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And Mike, here's a situation where you get the last word.
Which is usually the way it works.
Okay.
I'm running for mayor because this is our community, and I believe that together we can make it even better than what it is. I agree with Sarah, and I'm going to take the same opportunity. We have to get the road levy passed to improve our community by improving, by repaving the streets in front of your houses, and that's where the majority of that's going. It will increase the value of your homes, it will increase the value of the community, and it will help us have a better place to live. Wright-Patterson is our number one, it's a jewel that we don't pay much attention to. I work there, and we need to keep the streets that go there in the best repair that we can. Thank you. Please vote on November 5th. All three of us would be good choices. I believe I would be the best.
Okay, and thank you all for your participation here today, and good luck in your campaigns. The League of Women Voters encourages all candidates to run issue-oriented campaigns. Our goal is to educate the voting public and strengthen the elective process. We encourage everyone to vote on November the 5th. in the ever-popular League Voters Guide will be available at libraries and at your door, on your doorstep the week of October the 14th. Whether you vote early, absentee, or at the polls, your opinion matters, and your vote is what makes democracy work. Thank you very much from the League. Thank you.